crap. That was the most epic movie I've ever seen. There is no way Marvel is ever going to be able to top that. I don't know how you could ever top a movie like Infinity War. Sorry, Marvel. I think you just peaked. Well, sometimes it's good to admit when you're wrong. Avengers Endgame just released in theaters, and it was even better than we all hoped that it would be. It served as a perfect ending to the Infinity Saga that began over a decade ago. No other film franchise has a universe that is as well developed as the MCU's, and they definitely use that to their advantage in Endgame too. The movie is filled with Easter eggs and hidden references to all the other films that make the MCU so great. So let's dive in. Here are the Avengers Endgame hidden references to Marvel movies. The movie begins with a traumatizing look into the worst family picnic ever. After that though, it soothes us with a catchy song. Dear Mr. Fantasy by Traffic plays as Tony and Nebula drift through space. This song seems kind of odd out of context. It doesn't really fit Iron Man's usual playlist of choice. As we've known since the first movie, he's really more of an AC/DC kind of guy. It also doesn't seem like Nebula's jam either. She probably just listens to MP3 recordings of the last words of her enemies over and over again. The song choice does make sense once you realize where it's coming from. The song is coming through the speakers of the Benatar. We then recall that this is probably off Peter Quill's ZUNE that he got in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That makes the scene all the more poignant. The soundtracks for the first two Guardians movies are almost as famous as the movies themselves. Even the Rubber Band Man interlude in Infinity War is iconic for its relation to the team. It's a sad reminder in Endgame that the team is no longer alive. Luckily, they make it back by the end of the movie. Is it too early to pre-order the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 soundtrack? Tony Stark is without question the most developed character in the MCU. His traumatic experiences from the first film all the way through Endgame have had a profound effect on him. The Battle of New York in Avengers gave him PTSD in Iron Man 3. What's worse is he was given a horrible vision of the decimated Avengers at the beginning of Age of Ultron. This is what led him to create Ultron to become the suit of armor around the world. He was intended to serve as protection from the extraterrestrial threat we now know as Thanos. Unfortunately, that didn't work, and the resulting conflict destroyed Sokovia. In response to that tragedy, Tony helped spearhead the Sokovia Accords in Captain America's Civil War. This didn't sit well with Captain America. The Accords, coupled with the secrets he was keeping about Bucky, led to the Avengers falling out. In Infinity War, Stark is more or less alone as the sole original Avenger defending New York. Luckily, he had his new protege with him, Spider-Man. Though that backfired as Peter became one of the last casualties of the infamous snap. That's quite a lot of development for one character. What's more impressive is all of it gets referenced in Tony's big speech at the beginning of the movie. He recounts how he saw the greater threat coming and how the other Avengers didn't take him seriously. He even blames Cap personally for abandoning him over the Accords. All of the physical and emotional trauma overwhelms him and he just passes out. It's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best acted scenes, and it's no wonder. How often does an actor get to reference over a decade of trauma in one scene? Then he gives up being Iron Man in order to start a family. The only thing that gets him back into the game is a picture that he took of himself and Peter Parker. There really is no better way to send off such a beloved character like Tony Stark. The writers took special care to reference all of the trauma he'd experienced in his long journey as Iron Man. While the MCU started in Iron Man, it didn't get kicked into high gear until 2012's The Avengers. This was the first film to truly show that the shared universe method that Marvel Studios was using would work. It's fitting that Endgame brought us back to such a landmark event. Not only that, but it helped ground that movie with several of the other ones that came after it. The Avengers came out when the MCU was relatively young. Characters like Alexander Pierce or the Ancient One didn't even exist yet. That's why it was so great that Endgame brought them in. We now know that the Ancient One did in fact fight against Loki's army. She just did it covertly. We also know that Alexander Pierce unsuccessfully tried to get the Tesseract and Loki from the Avengers. Fun fact, Avengers Endgame is Robert Redford's final film appearance. It even had Cap recreate his elevator sequence from Winter Soldier, with Rumlow and Sitwell. Both were revealed to be Hydra agents in the first movie that was directed by the Russo brothers. He used this to his advantage to trick them into giving him the scepter. This is also a reference to Age of Ultron. That film begins with the Avengers having to recover the item from Hydra. Now we know how the evil organization got it in the first place. Marvel not only referenced one of their best movies, they found a way to make it even better. It's one of the most impressive feats in Endgame. The Thor movie franchise is often treated like the red-headed stepchild of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While movies like Iron Man and the Captain America trilogy are revered, Thor's movies are often forgotten entirely. Some even consider Thor 2: The Dark World to be the absolute low point of the entire extended franchise. That's why it was so surprising in Endgame when so many references were made to Thor's past. When we first see Thor, he is very different than what anyone would have expected. He doesn't have that trademark Hemsworth bod anymore. Instead, he looks like he just walked out of The Big Lebowski. His look may have seemed out of left field for some. Others will notice the uncanny resemblance to another character. Volstagg was one of the Warriors 3 in the Thor trilogy, though he didn't last long in the third one. He too boasted an impressive gut and beard combo. While Volstagg may not have made it into New Asgard, the Thor Ragnarok characters did much better. Valkyrie, Korg, and Meek all returned for delightful cameos that confirmed they survived Infinity War. They even let Thor and Hulk have another bonding moment after they got so close in Ragnarok. Most importantly, we actually got to return to the events of Thor 2. Now that doesn't sound like it would make for great entertainment, but it was one of the film's highlights. The unceremonious attack on Thor's mother in that film is one of the most hated parts about it. That's why it was so refreshing to see Thor get to have another conversation with her. She really does seem like the wisest person in Asgard. This works to retroactively make Thor 2 better. Not only that, but the film harkens back to the original Thor. He holds out his hand and Mjolnir comes rushing into it, proving that he's still worthy. His worthiness of this weapon was the entire plot of the first movie. The whole scene proved to be a wonderful dedication to the character and all the pain that he's gone through. There's been one huge question Marvel fans have had over the years regarding the famous Mad Titan. What has he been doing, and why does he keep sending other people to do his dirty work? Loki and Ronan were both dispatched on missions to bring him Infinity Stones instead of him just going himself. In Endgame, we get a glimpse into this. The movie flashes back to the time period of the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. There we see Thanos stage his plan for Ronan to fetch the Power Stone. We also see that he didn't spend all that time just sitting on his throne. His entrance features him filthy from battle, carrying a blood-covered double-bladed sword. Evidently, when he wasn't ordering others to do his dirty work, he was conquering planets. This also confirms what the Black Order was doing throughout the rest of the franchise. Thanos' own Black Ops team played a big role in Infinity War, but not so much in the other films. We see younger versions of all of them in Endgame. Ebony Maw is even seen interacting with Nebula and Gamora. This shows that the Order stayed pretty close to Thanos while he dispatched third parties to acquire stones for him. Black Widow and Hawkeye really got shortchanged as far as the original team goes. Thor, Cap, and Iron Man all got their own franchise. Even Hulk got to basically share the spotlight with Thor and Ragnarok. Most of the history of Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff is still a mystery. We have been dropped a few kernels of information over the years. The first Avengers movie fills in some of those blanks for us. Apparently, Hawkeye was supposed to hunt down Black Widow, only he decided to bring her into S.H.I.E.L.D. instead. Natasha has apparently felt indebted to Clint ever since. The two then became co-workers and close friends. There are several references to some sort of infamous Budapest mission. Hawkeye even mentions the mission when they're aboard the Benatar. The two are so close that Barton lets Black Widow know about his secret family. In Avengers Age of Ultron, we see that Romanoff is very close with all of the Bartons. They even decided to name one of their children after her. This makes the infamous Vormir scene really powerful. Black Widow sacrifices her life to save Clint and his family. She finally repays the debt she's owed him throughout the franchise. Not only that, but it's a wonderful sacrifice to perhaps the only family she's ever known. We may have to wait for the Black Widow movie to know more about the shared history between the two. We're now assuming that one's going to be a prequel, what with getting Gamora'd in Endgame and all. For more casual fans, the scene that took place in the 70s may have seemed out of place. Why was it so important for Iron Man and Cap to go back to this old military base in the middle of Endgame? Hardcore fans know that this was a brilliant move, however. It completed character arcs for both Avengers. Tony Stark has struggled with his father issues throughout the series. The two are known to have a very strained relationship. This is made apparent in Iron Man 2. Tony finds out that Howard Stark recorded a message telling Tony all the things he hadn't been able to say in person. That might have helped ease the rift, but it wasn't healed. He references his jealousy over how much his father loved Captain America when they met in the Avengers. His father is also the source of the breaking point between the two. Cap knew that the Winter Soldier was the one who orchestrated the hit on Tony's parents. That painful revelation is what led Tony to attack Cap and Bucky. That's why it's so great that Tony got to have one last talk with his dad. The two even share a hug, and you can tell Tony's pain has eased away. Meanwhile, Steve accidentally stumbles into the office of Peggy Carter. She was his love interest in the original Captain America movie. They were famously separated when Steve was frozen for decades. He doesn't actually get to talk to her, but this scene does motivate his time-traveling antics at the end of the movie. We also get the first television character cameo in the MCU movie. James Darcy played Jarvis in the hit series Agent Carter. He got to reprise his role briefly in Endgame as Howard's chauffeur. The big battle between Thanos' army and the Avengers is itself a huge reference to all the MCU movies. It features not only the fallen characters from Infinity War, but also characters like Valkyrie and Captain Marvel. This brings both of them into the fold and likely means that they will be Avengers in the future. We also see Captain America lift Mjolnir at last. This moment was teased in Age of Ultron when Steve tries and fails to lift the hammer. The scene also begins with Falcon repeating the "on your left" line from Winter Soldier. In that film, Cap said "on your left" every time he ran past Sam. This time, Sam said it as an inside joke. Not really the right time, Sam, but whatever. The scene also resolves a major issue from Infinity War. Doctor Strange confirms to Tony that the events of Endgame were what he saw in his vision. The battle was the one timeline where they won out of the 14 million. The final moment of the battle is actually a double reference. Iron Man steals the stones from Thanos and says, "I am Iron Man," before snapping. This is a direct reference to the first time he said that in Iron Man. The part where Thanos' army turns to dust is also a callback to Infinity War. There's really no better way to get revenge on Thanos than turning the infamous decimation back on him. Tony's funeral is just full of references to the Iron Man movies. In the first movie, Pepper gives Tony his first arc reactor back with the engraving, proof that Tony Stark has a heart. This reactor was seen again floating in the water during his funeral. We also see the character Harley Keener again. Harley was Tony's young friend in Iron Man 3 who lent him his garage. He shows up at the funeral among the various Marvel characters. Perhaps this opens the door for more appearances from Harley in the future. The world does need another Iron Man now. Happy Hogan also has a poignant moment with Morgan Stark. He asks her if she's hungry, and she tells him that she wants cheeseburgers. Happy then tells her that her father liked cheeseburgers too. Tony's first request when he returned home in Iron Man was for an American cheeseburger. It's also fitting that Happy is the one reminiscing about it. Jon Favreau pulled double duty in the first Iron Man as both Happy and the film's director. It's great that Endgame gave him so much focus during the funeral of the character that he helped originate. One of the saddest moments in the entire MCU happens in Captain America: The First Avenger. As Captain America is about to crash a Hydra aircraft into the sea, he calls Peggy Carter. The two tearfully plan to have a dance together after the war. Unfortunately, he crashes into the ice before they can. That moment finally gets resolved in the last seconds of Endgame. We see Captain America travel into the past and finally have the dance he'd been waiting for. Some may be confused as to how Cap could disrupt his own timeline like this. Well, in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Peggy references having a husband. The movie never confirms who the mystery man is though. It easily could have been Cap all along.
It isn't crazy to think that she could have kept Steve Rogers' return a secret for all those years.
Though it must be awkward every time Peggy's niece Sharon comes to visit. I wonder if he ever tells Peggy that he made out with a grown-up niece in the future. Maybe keep that secret to yourself, Steve. Were there any big references we missed? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more from The Binger.